Hello everyone and welcome back to the the YouTube special, CKTV special. The Movie Zone is back with you, and we're now in part 2 of my special on the Batman franchise, the Batman saga, the history of Batman. And in the first episode I talked about the genesis of Batman, the start, the creation by Bob Kane, and on into the 1930s and 40s serials, and then on into the 1960s TV series. But now we're going to skip. Well, we're going to talk briefly about the 70s and 80s. It was more kind of comic book stuff in them decades when it comes to Batman. I think there was a couple of short films, maybe a couple of feature length short mini series based on the Frank Miller Batman, a bit more serious from the 60s. I think in the early 80s they tried something, but it didn't really work out too well. But we're going to talk now about the first of the new age Batman movies, which was in 1989. It was called Batman the Movie. It was directed by superstar director Tim Burton, who had just recently made a big name for himself directing the brilliant Beetlejuice. He had done a couple of other very good films leading up to this reincarnation of the Batman franchise. Of course, we had seen a very camp, very cheesy Batman at this stage, but then this was a total makeover for the Batman franchise. And who better to have as the villain in the first movie of the Tim Burton series? We didn't know we didn't really know it was going to be a series at this stage. He was planning on just doing a one-off Batman movie and doing it his way. But Warner Brothers took exception to him doing it his way, so he just listened to the studio and they made Batman the way Warner Brothers wanted it to be made. Because after all, the director is only doing the job he's told to do by the studio. So Warner Brothers wanted a new, more serious revamp of the Batman franchise, the Batman movie, and they decided they would go with the Joker as their villain. So as Batman, they took in Michael Keaton, who turned out to be an amazing Batman, probably my favorite Batman. I thought more recently, of course, Christian Bale plays Batman. He plays a great role as Batman, but they're two different contrasts, I think. Keaton, for his time, 1989, an excellent Batman. Then they took in as Keaton's antagonist in the movie, they took in the Joker, and they took in Jack Nicholson to play the Joker, who was amazing, absolutely amazing as the Joker. And then of course we would see some amount of years later, 17 years later, or 19 years later, we seen Heath Ledger reprise the role of the Joker, and turned out to be excellent, probably. But then again, two different contrasts of types of characters. Jack Nicholson played him in a very dark way. Ledger probably played him in an even darker way. Unbelievable, different characters in this. Jack Palance, of course, was the Joker's crime lord. Or Jack Napier, of course, the Joker's real name was the Joker's name before his alias, before he became the Joker. And his boss was Jack Napier. Of course, Jack Napier brought his gangsters in to do a kind of a takeover of one of the chemical plants, and he sent in Jack Napier, his right hand man. And as you know the story as it progressed, it turned out Jack Nicholson, known of course as Jack Napier at this stage in the movie, was thrown into the acid. Well, it wasn't thrown, he fell into the acid when Batman tried to save him. Of course, he came back then and killed Palance's character. And other people in the movie, Billy D. Williams, of course. Vicky Vale was a big character in the Batman franchise. She was played by none other than great Hollywood actress down through the years, Kim Basinger, who was the love interest of Bruce Wayne and the love interest of Batman in the movie. Then she was, of course, was a newspaper journalist in the movie and in comics, you understand. Also, in the Batman franchise, in the Batman the movie, 1989, we've seen Michael Cuff start his role as Alfred. He was one of the only two actors that kept on his role as a character in all four of the 80s, 90s Batman series. But also Harvey Dent was in the movie. His, of course, role was the DA, the District Attorney, in the first Batman movie. Also in the first Batman movie was Commissioner Gordon, played by Paul Ingle, who also was the other actor that kept on the role for all four movies. So they were the two cornerstones of the Batman series, of this particular Batman series. Tim Burton wanted to do this film, wanted to do it well. He did do it well. It broke the box office. It was one of the biggest grossing films for years. I think by the early 2000s, until Titanic came out, it was the biggest grossing movie in the box office, apparently, along with Star Wars and a couple of others. It was up there with the best. Very, very good first outing for the new idea of Batman, and very good roles by Nicholson and Keaton. In my opinion, I think it would have been good to have another villain in the film, maybe. I thought, my personal opinions on this particular movie, I love the movie. Replay value of watching it over and over. I've watched it a lot of times at this stage. Replay value not as good as its predecessor, or not as good as its sequel, Batman Returns, in my opinion. Then that's just my opinion. A lot of people like this more than Batman Returns. Big Batman enthusiasts out there on the internet would argue that this Batman the movie was the best ever. Couldn't beat it. Until the new Christopher Nolan franchise showed up, and a lot of them are saying that it has far outdated this, which was 20-year-old, I suppose, when that franchise was at its peak with The Dark Knight. So it's a lot of food for thought there. It's a lot of cum si, cum sa, a lot of different ideas floating about whether this movie is the best Batman film. I would tend to have mixed opinions on the film. I would give it definitely a 9 out of 10 as a movie. Very, very good film. And big score there. Definitely. Big movie. Michael Keaton, great role. He was also iffy about whether he would carry on as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Hollywood actor, Hollywood directors, I suppose they have different... They want to enjoy their work. They want to go on and do better stuff. They want to go on and do very different stuff. They want to change, take leave of different ideas in their life and then move on to different things. And maybe doing sequels isn't their favourite thing to do. A lot of people love doing sequels. So I suppose it's in the individual, their ideas of what to do. But I really think that the first Batman movie lived up to expectation at the time for people. Would have liked to have been more aware of. I was only 2 when it came out, so I would have loved to have been more aware of the whole hype around it at the time. But I would imagine it was very similar to the Batman Begins, which came out in 2005. Very similar hype and stuff, and with The Dark Knight. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for this second episode of the Batman saga, the history of Batman, with our CKTV YouTube Movie Zone special, all about the Batman franchise. But right now, I'm going to see you later. Yoster, over and out.
Every punk in this town is scared stiff. They say he can't be killed. They say he drinks blood. Is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Vicky Vale.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
He's a tired old man. Can't run this city without me. Your luck is about to change. Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me. He's out there right now. And I've got to go to work. My life is really complex. I have given a name to my pain. I'm Batman.
Transition to a serious film, you need to explore the character of Batman. What is it that could make somebody put on a bat suit and go out and fight crime?
The concept that I like, that I threw to Tim, is, have to start out with the premise that our guy is basically insane. And Batman is the manifestation of his insanity. And so I said, now what if the story is, he meets a girl and starts to go sane? What if he suddenly realizes, hey, I could have a normal life. And he realizes it's in complete, stark opposition to the path that he's chosen for himself.
They ask, who's playing Batman in the next movie? It's kind of irrelevant, because the real question is, who's playing Bruce Wayne? That's what the movie is really about.
We were interested in not exploring the cliched aspects of a comic book, but trying to get a little bit more out of it. In the film, we were trying to juggle several tones: drama, humor, absurdity, and there are very few actors who I think can do all of that at once, and Michael is definitely that.
When Michael Keaton was cast, we all saw Michael Keaton wearing tights and going he's never gonna look muscular enough. And once you saw him in that sculpted suit, you were like, it didn't matter who. They could have put me in a suit and I could have been Batman, because the suit defined the guy.
You know how people have different sides to their personality?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a person will have to actually lead a different life.
I love that scene because, Michael Keaton is such a great comedian. And I said, it's okay, it's okay, you can tell me. No matter what it was, I just wanted him to know he could tell me. And of course, the reality is, of course I knew who Batman was, but I loved playing not knowing.
If he walked out onto the street as himself, you'd never go, uh-oh. He looks like a guy who would need to dress up like a bat for effect.
We took this hardcore, took a Clint Eastwood kind of a guy and put him in as Batman. You just go, well, why would that guy, a real deadly, serious kind of guy, why would he dress up as a bat?
The wonderful aspect of Michael Keaton's portrayal is that you felt almost sad for him, the fact that he looked so uncomfortable in his own skin, in his own house, talking to the people who were supposed to be his best friends, that you wondered, where does he fit in the world? That's when you see him sitting in the Batcave in front of the council, you realize this is where he belongs. This is where he should be.
Oh, look at that!
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? You can call me Joker.
The Joker is the greatest supervillain ever created. He is inspired by the old silent film from German cinema, The Man Who Laughs. It is that carnival mask of a clown that hides the horror lurking just below the surface. And to have him pitted against the good guy who is in the mask of a horrific, nightmarish bat. So it's an interesting reversal.
You have the Joker, who's this completely character represents anarchy, the randomness of crime, and the fact that Bruce lost his parents because of an act of random crime, and he's trying to bring order to the world and order to life. Joker represents everything that he hates.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
Well, I got a copy of Sam Hamm's script before the film got made in '89, and the origin of Joker was something that I found actually much more impressive than the one that was done in the comics by comics' greatest writer, Alan Moore. I felt that the take in the film was actually a more credible one, where he's just this nasty guy that's always been nasty and didn't go insane. He just really had this thing happen to him that allowed him to sort of open up his nastiness to a new creative level. It makes a lot of sense going from Jack Napier the gangster to Jack the Joker. I thought in a way that comics had begun depicting Joker as a very fearsome figure in the previous 20 years before the movie, where he was genuinely frightening, and the idea that Jack Nicholson would be playing him certainly would bring that to life.
You know, I mean, even before I got involved with the project, people were talking about Jack Nicholson doing it, you know, before I was around. So the great thing about Jack is he can fulfill everybody's expectation and still go way beyond that.
He was the one that everybody thought of from the very beginning. And as I said, fortunately, he had seen Beetlejuice and had loved it, so it worked out.
Wait till they get a load of me. This would be the character whose core, while totally determinant of the part, was the least limiting of any I would ever encounter. You know, this is a more literary way of approaching than I might have had as a kid when I read the comics, but, you know, you have to get specific. In a way, his specifics broadened it rather than what you normally use specifics for, so you don't drift. His specifics are he's not wired up the same way. This guy has survived nuclear waste immersion here.
I have given a name to my pain.
Mysterious figure.
And it is Batman.
Here and disappear.
You know, even in my own life, people have said there's nothing sacred to you in the area of humor, Jack. You'll trample on it. You know, sometimes, Jack, relax with the humor. This does not apply to the Joker. In fact, just the opposite. Things that even the wildest comics might be afraid to find funny. Burning somebody's face into oblivion. Destroying a masterpiece in a museum. A subject that, as an art person, made me a little scared. Not this character. And I love that.
He was able to use a lot of the devilish, humorous qualities that he possesses as Jack Nicholson, the man, and transfer that to Jack the Joker.
I had an actor friend whose name was Clegg Hoyt. He did a thing called the bird dance, which I did spontaneously in the picture where he goes, you know, when he did that X, and that was like a personal, you know, homage to Clegg. Certain periods of time, I know I have to look at the dailies and so forth. Other periods, I'm too scared. You know, what if I don't like it, you know, or what if it makes me feel like you know, whatever you fear when you don't confront your fears. And I didn't go to dailies at first on this picture. You know, I don't know why I made that decision, but finally Tim, John Peters said, no, you really should see this, you know, and the way they said that to me, I went. And from then on in, I knew, you know, I mean, it really, that was even further liberating. And as I say, some movies just go right.